Okay, everyone. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the field experience and the use of the forms in the field experience handbook. So I'm going to find those forms. One place I can get to them is going to modules when I'm logged into our 586 course in Canvas. And if I scroll down to the bottom, miscellaneous resources, there's a link to a number of different forms and pieces and parts that belong to our gifted class. And the one that I want for you to look at today is the Gifted Field Experience Handbook. This is the handbook that has all of the forms for the 20-hour field experience, which you'll have in 586 and 585. And then it also has the forms for student teaching. So I'm going to clarify for you which forms that we're going to be using so that you know what's expected of you. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick rundown, and then I'll have later screencasts that go into a few of the forms more in depth. So in our handbook, if I scroll through, we've talked about this a little bit, but basically the purpose of the field experience is to give you experience in doing what gifted intervention specialists would do. So that role has many different ways that it can be enacted. You'll need for the field experience to be working with students, but as you probably know, a gifted intervention specialist also serves as co-teacher, as tutors, as mentors, as evaluators. But we're going to focus on the idea of whole group and small group instructor. Okay? So we also appreciate that you're trying to make this work while you have other things going on in your lives, like your real job. So we are going to say that you, while you do need to do this experience with a different classroom, a different group of students than your typical classroom. It could be an after-school experience, or it could be in a different classroom in your building, or you can visit to another school and complete this, whatever seems most realistic and easiest for you. Okay, and here's some examples. So either instruction in a classroom with gifted students, a regular education classroom with identified gifted students. There's even an allowance for using distance learning or in an extracurricular activity. So we want to be as flexible as possible. Okay, so rather than reading all these bullet points to you, I'm actually going to go through the forms and show you what they are. You're going to be required to implement 3 lessons. And this first form, 20-hour field experience, this is the first one that you'll fill in. So you're going to put in your name, your numbers, your instructors, and you're going to want to contact Sheila Brown. Her contact information is on Canvas in order to set up a meeting with her so she can come and observe you for one of those lessons. Okay, so this is kind of the cover sheet. And then we're going to go through and talk about the other 4 forms that you'll have. So goals and monitoring. So here we got 30-hour page. We don't need that. We don't need this. We don't need page 8. We don't need page 9. We can jump to where it says form number 1. There is a place for 2 goals. You're only required for 20-hour field experience to do 1. In a later screencast, I'll talk about some example goals and how that will work. So you need your goal sheet with 1 goal. Then with your 3 lessons, you're going to need to fill out 1 version of Form 2. Form 2, it's kind of like a unit plan. So your 3 lessons ideally should hang together in one big overarching essential understanding. So this is based on backwards design process, and that you're planning your assessment and your learning targets. Well, your learning targets first, and then you would plan your assessment and what your essential understanding, what kids need to be able to know and do at the end of the unit. And then it makes sense to plan the learning activities, practice tasks, and the other activities that you might have for students. For Form 3, you're probably going to need 3 of these, 1 for each lesson. So this is the lesson plan format. And I would suggest that you would do this electronically. If you tried to print this off and hand write what you wanted to write in here, I don't think that it would fit. But it includes elements of planning, and then there's also a self-reflection piece. So remember that you have 2 parts to that you are going to need to demonstrate in writing, so that as I'm looking over your work and as Sheila is going to be observing you, we can see not only your action, but your ability to reflect and assess your own performance. Okay, and then finally, Form 4 is the rubric by which you will be evaluated. So for one lesson, you'll be evaluated by a cooperating teacher in the school or in the setting that you're doing your lessons in. For a second lesson, you'll be evaluated by Sheila Brown, who is the university field supervisor. For the third lesson, you'll videotape your lesson and you will send that electronic video recording in to Sheila. She'll review the film and she'll fill out this rubric. But it's important, just like you would with kids, that you review this rubric for you so that you can look at what exceeds criteria for clinical field experience. Make sure you plan these kinds of things into the lessons that you're doing. This should look pretty familiar to you. It's pretty straightforward in terms of the kinds of things we're looking for, and since all of you have teaching experience, it should not be a problem, but just make sure you look over it and that you're familiar with the language and the vocabulary. And basically, those are the only forms that you will need to fill out. So to review, you have a cover sheet, you have a place where you're going to set a goal, you have a unit plan, you also have lesson plans, and there'll be one copy of a lesson plan per lesson. So that's kind of an overview of the paperwork. Stay tuned later for more information about how to get tips and tricks for filling out these forms. Thanks.